In 2005, Uniqlo, the Japanese clothing chain, opened its first store in New York City. The store failed. It was closed within 18 months. Industry observers concluded that Uniqlo did not understand the American market, that its products did not appeal to American consumers, and that its expansion plan should be abandoned. In 2024, Uniqlo's parent company, Fast Retailing, surpassed Inditex, the parent company of Zara, in total stock market valuation. Uniqlo is now worth more than Zara. This shift happened despite Zara being roughly twice the size of Uniqlo by store count, twice the size by revenue, and dominant in the United States, where Uniqlo's first store had failed 2 decades earlier. The story of how Uniqlo overtook Zara is, on its surface, a story about fashion. It is actually a story about 2 fundamentally different theories of what a clothing company should be. The 2 theories produced 2 different companies, 2 different products, and 2 different relationships with their customers. Both succeeded for a while. One has, in the long run, scaled further than the other. To understand the difference, you have to understand what Zara was selling. Zara's business model, developed in the 1990s, was called fast fashion. Zara identified styles emerging on fashion runways or in celebrity culture, designed clothing that mimicked those styles, manufactured it in small batches, and shipped it to stores within 2 to 3 weeks. The clothing was, by design, cheap, trendy, and short-lived. A Zara shirt was not meant to be worn for 3 years. It was meant to be worn for 1 season, until the next season's styles arrived in the store. This model required, behind the scenes, an extraordinarily fast supply chain. Zara's stores were restocked twice a week. The product mix changed constantly. The customer who walked into a Zara store this week would see different products from the customer who walked in next week. The strategy depended on customers visiting the store frequently, because each visit might be the last chance to buy a particular item. Zara grew dramatically through the 2000s. By 2015, Inditex was the largest clothing retailer in the world. The fast fashion model had been copied by H&M, Forever 21, Topshop, and a dozen other competitors. The conventional wisdom in the apparel industry was that fast fashion was the future. Uniqlo's business model was almost the opposite. Uniqlo did not chase trends. Uniqlo did not change its product mix weekly. Uniqlo's core products were basic items in a small range of colors and sizes. T-shirts, jeans, socks, fleece jackets, button-down shirts. The same products were sold every year, with incremental improvements in fabric quality and fit. The thing Uniqlo did invest in was the fabric. Uniqlo partnered with Japanese textile companies, most notably Toray, to develop proprietary fabric technologies. HeatTech, a thin synthetic fabric that retains body heat. Airism, a moisture-wicking summer fabric. Dry X, an athletic fabric. Ultra-light down, a compressible insulated jacket fabric. These were not fashion items. They were engineering products. The Uniqlo customer was not buying the latest style. The Uniqlo customer was buying a t-shirt that would still look good after 100 washes, or a winter undershirt that would replace a heavier sweater. The product proposition was functional rather than aesthetic. In 2005, when Uniqlo opened its first New York store, this proposition did not register with American consumers. American consumers, at that point, were deep in the fast fashion era. They were shopping at Zara, H&M, and Forever 21, looking for cheap, trendy clothing to wear once and discard. Uniqlo's plain, functional, slightly more expensive basics did not fit the moment. Uniqlo's executives, after the New York failure, did something unusual. They did not change the product. They did not pivot to fast fashion. They concluded that the New York store had failed not because Uniqlo's products were wrong, but because American consumers were not yet ready for them. They were correct, but they had to wait almost 10 years for the market to catch up. Between 2010 and 2020, several things happened to fast fashion. Environmental criticism of the model intensified. Customers became aware that clothing they wore once was ending up in landfills. The supply chain practices of fast fashion companies, particularly around labor conditions, became sustained press topics. The aesthetic of fast fashion itself began to feel dated. The idea of disposable clothing started to feel embarrassing. In the same window, the proposition Uniqlo had been making in 2005 began to feel newly relevant. A small wardrobe of high-quality basics, designed to last, was suddenly aspirational rather than boring. The Japanese concept of minimalism popularized by Marie Kondo and others, became globally fashionable. The Uniqlo aesthetic, which had been ahead of its market in 2005, became the consensus aesthetic of the late 2010s. Uniqlo did not have to change to meet this moment. They had been the same company, selling the same products, for decades. The world rotated around them. By 2020, Uniqlo had successfully reopened in the United States and was expanding aggressively. By 2024, fast retailing had surpassed Inditex in market capitalization. The shift was not driven by Uniqlo growing faster than Zara. It was driven by Zara slowing down. Zara's fast fashion model, which had looked unstoppable in 2015, looked increasingly fragile in 2024. The model depended on consumers who wanted to buy clothing constantly. Those consumers were, in aggregate, becoming a smaller part of the apparel market. There is a structural lesson here that applies far beyond clothing. A business model can be very successful for a long period of time and still be structurally fragile. Fast fashion was successful for 30 years. It was also, the entire time, dependent on cultural assumptions that could shift. The cultural assumption that disposable clothing was acceptable. The cultural assumption that constantly changing styles was desirable. The cultural assumption that the environmental cost of cheap clothing did not matter. When those assumptions shifted, the business model that depended on them began to weaken. The Uniqlo model was, by contrast, built on much more stable assumptions. The assumption that people need functional clothing that lasts. The assumption that incremental improvements in fabric technology are valuable. The assumption that a small wardrobe of high-quality basics is a useful thing to have. These assumptions were not specific to any era. They have been true for centuries. They will continue to be true. This is the difference between betting on a moment and betting on a constant. Zara bet on the moment of fast fashion. Uniqlo bet on the constant of functional clothing. Both bets paid off for a while. The constant has outlasted the moment. When you see two competitors in a market, ask which one is betting on a moment and which one is betting on a constant. The one betting on the moment will win, often dramatically, while the moment lasts. The one betting on the constant will not look impressive during the moment. The constant will eventually return. When it does, the company betting on it will still be there. The company that bet on the moment may not be. If you found this interesting, subscribe. We go deep on the structural differences between business models that look identical from the outside, but rest on completely different assumptions. Drop your requests in the comments. Thanks for watching.